Hello, my name's Mark Schlier. I'm the archivist for Lincoln University, and I am going to give you some highlights of the history of the institution, our heritage, how we got started, and what we had to do to survive in the beginning, and what we're doing now. So I hope you enjoy this. I am an alumnus of Lincoln University. I'm a proud Blue Tiger, and I have a lot of pride in my university, and I hope that you enjoy this presentation. Thank you. Lincoln University was founded in 1866 by the members of the 62nd and 65th United States Colored Troop Regiments. Uh, African Americans prior to 1863 were not allowed in the United States military, and with the advent of the Emancipation Proclamation by Abraham Lincoln, they were invited to join the service in a separate branch. And these guys from the 62nd and 65th were mostly from Missouri. And to make sure that they became good soldiers and good citizens after the war, their lieutenant, Richard Baxter Foster, asked the men of the 62nd if they would like an education, and they heartily agreed, and so they did. At the end of the war, they were stationed in Texas, and they were sitting around the campfire one night, and the men were talking about what they wanted to do when they got home. And one of the men said, I'm not sure who it was, but one of them came up with the idea, let's start a school back home so we can give our folks what we got in the Army, an education. So the idea of Lincoln Institute at the time was born, and between the two groups, the 62nd and the 65th, they raised $6,000, which is a substantial sum at that time. So the school started in Jefferson City, Missouri in 1866. The first day of school there was only 2 students, but after that, we began to grow. The word got out among African Americans that you could get not only an education at Lincoln, but you could get trained in a vocation, which was something that African Americans needed after being freed, was to have a vocation, have a career, have a job that they could be successful at. And so we weren't a university right off the bat, but one of the first courses of instruction we had was how to be a teacher education, so that African Americans could go out into the black community and educate folks so that they would have that education when they got to Lincoln. Then you could start with university courses such as algebra, biology, chemistry, and whatnot. And so our curriculum expanded into the early 1900s. And by the 1920s, we had quite a bit of university and college level curriculum that we requested that Lincoln Institute become a full 4-year university, and that happened in 1921 under President Richardson. And we added graduate school in 1940. During the 20s and 30s, Lincoln was known as the Black Harvard of the Midwest due to the fact that Nathan Young, one of our presidents, recruited African American educators from Ivy League schools to come to Central Missouri to make sure that African Americans could receive an education equal to those at the predominantly white schools. So the atmosphere on campus was one of academia, curriculum, education, learning, just a little bit of everything. And several programs were started at that time, including the debate club, the history club, philosophy club, the dance troupe, and the Lincoln Clarion. In 1935, we had a guy graduate. His name was Lloyd Gaines. and he was a civil rights hero, and I'll explain a little further. Graduated in 35. He applied to the law school at Missouri, University of Missouri, and they turned him down because of his skin color. And they said, well, we can send you to Nebraska or Illinois or Kansas. Lloyd says, well, that's nice, but I'm a citizen in the state of Missouri, and I would like to go to school in my home state. Basically, to make a long story short, it went to court, and in 1938, the U.S. Supreme Court said to the state of Missouri, you allow Mr. Gaines to attend law school in the state of Missouri either at MU or at a so-called separate but equal facility. Well, the legislature of Missouri said, we'll build him a school. And so Lincoln University got a law school, which was in St. Louis from 1939 to 1956 when Brown versus Board of Education came about. Now, Lloyd said, hey, that's nice, but I'm going to MU. So they're going back to court. Lloyd is looking for work. He's traveling around. He was in Chicago in March of 1939. And one night he went out to buy stamps and was never seen again to this day. But the fact that Lloyd Gaines' case made an impact on education nationwide, the fact that schools could not send out their residents, they had to educate them in their own state, was the first step from separate but equal to the Brown versus Board of Education. And that's the story of Lloyd Gaines. He's a Lincolnite like you and me. Brown versus Board of Education not only had an effect on African Americans seeking education, but also affected the outlook, the layout, the makeup, if you want to call it, of Lincoln University, because now, after Brown versus Board, not only could blacks go to white schools, but whites could go to traditionally black schools, which is what happened to Lincoln in 1955. Surrounding towns had citizens that now had a choice of where they could go to college. They didn't have to go to MU anymore. If they wanted to go to the black Harvard of the Midwest at a lower cost, they were free to do so, and a lot of them chose that. And the makeup of the campus, like I said, was a little bit different, but the enrollment span almost doubled from the years 1955 up through 1962, and the growth, there was a lot of growth on this campus, and our programs expanded. We got more into agriculture. Teacher education is one of the big draws, and our nursing program, which is very popular, probably our most popular major, began in 1968 and is probably, I'm not saying this just because I'm an alumni, is probably one of the best nursing programs in the entire country, and we're very proud of that. In the 1970s, a man named James Frank, Dr. James Frank, became president of Lincoln University, and I have something in common with him, and so do you. He was our first Lincoln alumni to become president of the university. We're very proud of him, and unfortunately he just passed away earlier this year and is missed by a lot of people. We fell into a little bit of financial difficulties in the mid-'80s. Our budget fell short and our spending was overrun, and we got in trouble. I'm going to be totally honest with you. There was talk about LU closing, but we bounced back, tightening the belt, and we sold some of our farmland, not all of it, but enough to get out of trouble, and we bounced back from that, and our enrollment was at an all-time high of 4,000 students. In the 1990s, we had the beginnings of our dynasty, our women's track team dynasty, the Lady Blue Tigers, which continues to this day. We're very good track team. Our other sports programs include football, of course. We're making a lot of strides in that. Our basketball teams have come back nicely. The men's team made the playoffs last few years and been nationally ranked. Very proud of them. Our science and agriculture programs Actually, the whole STEM programs have just been multiplying by leaps and bounds. We're looking very good in that. Our military science program is very strong, carrying out the tradition of our soldiers that founded us. The soldier's dream was for opportunity for education, and they're still providing that 153 years later. Our incoming freshmen are the latest version of the soldier's dream, and we hope you make it come true. If you have any questions about the archives, please come up and see me on the third floor of the library. I'd be glad to help you. And go LU.